All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Coach Andrew Porter, along with Coach Gil Sugar. Good afternoon. Welcome to Q&A. We'll get started here in a few minutes. What's going on, Gil? How you doing today,
brother? Good afternoon to you. Good morning for me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you folks are coming to us from. I'm having a great day so far, Andy. How about yourself?
It's been all right. It's been, it's summertime in the LBC, as they say. And, I'm in Kansas City. But, no, it's good. It's good. We got a good day ahead of us, good Q&A. So nothing specific to talk about today. We just want to field as many questions as possible to our viewing veterans, arm you with the knowledge you need to succeed. And hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your day. I know it's a Tuesday here. Thanks for joining us in the middle of the week.
Wednesday.
Oh, it's Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday.
Don't cheat yourself, man. Don't cheat yourself.
It's a short week anyways because of the 4th of July, right? So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, welcome in, everybody. We're going to take a couple minutes to let everybody get settled. We ask you, introduce yourselves in the comments. Throw up where you're joining us from, what branch you served in, when you served. We'd love to see all that. As we get into the process, if you have any questions, we're going to ask you to type them into the comments. We'll do our best to go over the ones that we can. We'll highlight a few of them. If we don't get to your question, someone will try and reach out to you later to try and answer that off of this program. But we're going to be here till the top of the next hour and do the best we can. One thing, if you've got very specific questions about your individual conditions, this isn't the best forum for that. We want to maintain your privacy. We don't want to get too personal, but if you got general questions about the VA process, VA claims, how the VA rates things, approaches things, what we do, how we work with vets to help them get the benefits that they deserve, we'd love to answer as many of those questions as we can. I view these opportunities as a great chance to share our expertise with you. And also, I know a lot of you folks are awfully darn smart, so sometimes it's stump the coaches, see what you guys can come up with.
I welcome it. I welcome the challenge, Gil. You and I have been here. We're some of the old dogs in the race here. So
I prefer the term experience. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, brother. I look forward to these. I truly do. I love the Q&As more than, sticking to one topic for 30 minutes and then going on to just a 20-minute Q&A session. So glad to be doing this class with you. It's always good to be with somebody that is, that's just kind of a savage as you are. I enjoy working with you. So good to have you, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate the compliment. I'm gonna presume you mean savage in the best way possible.
I do. Hey, speaking of which, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the class? We got about 2 minutes before we get started.
Absolutely.
You have an impressive background that I.
We're not going to get into a lot of that stuff. Some of that are sealed records, so we
Fair enough.
That stuff. But I'm a Navy vet. I served quite a while ago. I was in destroyers. Served primarily in the Pacific. Enjoyed most of the time there. Did a whole bunch of things following my active duty service. And 5 years ago, I landed here. Saw an opportunity to help some of my fellow vets. Love the mission of what we do. So I spend all day, every day on the phone talking to vets, trying to help them develop a strategy to increase their benefits or to get the first round of benefits that they deserve. I know we've got a lot of vets from different branches coming up. Andy's a proud Army veteran, right?
I am. Joined in 2004, got out in 2019. Actually, I served in both the Air Force and the Army. Spent most of my time in the Army where I was an infantryman. Spent my entire career in the airborne community and have been with VA Claims Insider since 2021. So going on my fifth year here. And I think I joined about 6 months before you did here.
Yeah, I think so.
I was in the cohort right before you. So what I wanted to do was, I wanted to, when I got out of the Army, I tried, I was thinking about, okay, should I go to flight school or law school? And so I started taking classes and, the flight school thing was ruled out because of some physical stuff that I just wasn't able to get the FAA cert. So started the different route there and, just started taking classes. And I said, I was talking to Donnie Witten. He's a VCM here, a veteran coach manager here at VA Claims Insider. And he said, hey, you'd be a great candidate for this job. And so I applied and, it gave me an opportunity to help veterans just continue to serve without wearing the uniform. And Tell you what, brother, I love it. I get to help veterans every single day. Obviously, the veteran community is near and dear to both of our hearts. So here we are. And so you guys are my why. Thank you for letting us spend some time and be a little part of your VA journey here, whether you're one of Gil or my clients, or you're just new to the process or looking to sign in or sign up, rather. We're happy to have you. We'll go ahead and get started with, before we start with our question and answer time, we'll go ahead and get started with a couple of housekeeping things here. We'd like to make sure that you are having a great Wednesday. Let us know where you're tuning in from, right? What branch you served and what years you served in. So about our elite program, I want to get started there. A little disclaimer here. We are not accredited agents, VSOs, attorneys, or any other entity recognized by the Department of Veterans Affairs. We are not affiliated with the VA in any way, and VA Claims Insider is, though, an education-based coaching company for disabled veterans exploring eligibility for increased VA disability benefits and who wish to learn more about that process. VA Claims Insider also connects veterans with vetted, independent medical professionals in our preferred provider network for medical examinations and independent medical opinions, such as nexus letters, DBQ, psych evals, so on and so forth, for a wide range of disability conditions. They are a separate company, Telemedica is, so keep that in mind. What we do at VA Claims Insider is we specialize in strategy, education, and medical evidence. All right, folks. So the one-on-one coaching, you're going to have multiple strategy sessions depending on what phase you're in. So an initial strategy, and then after that initial claim, so on and so forth. We'll strategize more from there until we get you to where you deserve to be. We'll have claim submission education, C&P education, and then we also provide multiple live classes via Zoom, 3 live classes per week, typically, coffee with the coaches, several days per week, so in the morning, mental health exam education, medical exam education, and obviously these Facebook Lives. So lots and lots of information. If you're not yet an elite member and you would like to learn more, schedule a free discovery call and talk to one of our team members by going to vaclaims.help. I believe they're going to put a link down there, and there it is. So if you need help, reach out to our organization at vaclaimsinsider.com. We would love to partner with you on your VA claims journey. And having said all that, here we are. Gil and I are here to help, and we'd love to answer any questions. Gil, do you see any in the chat yet that we can kick it off with?
Yeah, we got a couple in here. Let me just add a little bit for that discovery call. That is a great place to get any additional questions about exactly what we do answered. Our veteran ambassadors are there to get on the phone with you, answer your questions, explore your opportunities, and make sure that you're satisfied that this is a good fit for you. We work with tens of thousands of veterans, and we'd love to bring you on board if you haven't gotten the benefits that you deserve. I'm just going to go from top to bottom here, Andy, unless you see one that jumps out at you. Harry Murphy asked, he was here, I think the first one to jump in, wondering if you know anything about the status of claims and where they are with water contamination suits for Camp Lejeune. He tries to follow a few online sites and nothing seems to be happening. We don't involve ourselves with lawsuits of that nature. Those are all handled by private law firms. Many of them are class action lawsuits. If you're interested in that particular issue, you need to get legal counsel on that. We do, however, work with veterans that might have a condition that was caused by toxic exposure to their time at Camp Lejeune. Certain conditions are considered presumptive to toxic exposure down there. What that means, if you don't know, a presumptive condition simply means that the VA recognizes that if you have a designated condition and you served at a qualifying place at a qualifying time, the VA will presume that that condition was caused by your military service at that location. It doesn't require you to go out and get a medical opinion, a nexus opinion to show that connection. But as far as the lawsuits go, we're hands off on that. You're going to have to go to other sources to find information about that.
Right. And if you served at least 30 cumulative days between August 1st, 1953 and December 31st, 87 at Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune or Marine Corps Air Station New River, you may qualify for those presumptive conditions. So again, like Gil said, we don't involve ourselves in any lawsuits, but you do it. If you meet that those standards, then you do have that presumptive connection if you've gotten diagnosed with one of those conditions.
Excellent.
All right. Joseph says, let's see, Stockbridge, Georgia, 91 to 98. And I had to file an OIG report because I was discharged in 1998 due to losing a child. My condolences, my friend, and got told by my command that I didn't get benefits. So if you served honorably and exited the military with an honorable discharge, or anything above dishonorable, or bad conduct, then you should be eligible for benefits. I would say, again, get with a coach so they can put eyes on your DD-214 or any other service treatment records or anything like that. But that, if you got out with an honorable discharge or, something along those lines and under honorable conditions, then I do not see why you would not, be eligible for benefits. There's no reason. Gil, anything to add there?
No, that's a great explanation. Just because your command said you didn't get benefits, that doesn't really tell the whole story. Does that mean you're not getting anything right now because you didn't make any claims? Does that mean you didn't qualify for some other reason that we haven't discussed? Talk to one of our veteran ambassadors and explore that. And if you meet all the qualifications as Andy laid out, you're qualified. We can work with you and try and get you the benefits you deserve.
Yeah, remember, folks, military commanders, and most active duty military members are not VA claims experts. Actually, a lot of them give bad information. Right? So,
and the longer ago you served, the harder it was to get good information. I'm a little more seasoned than most of us here, and I will tell you that when I left back in, we pretty much it was like, here's your records as a gate. Thanks for your time. Oh, and if you ever want to buy a house, you should call the VA. They might be able to help you with that. And that was all we knew about the VA. That was it. There was not another word said until many, many, many years later. And what that should help you understand too is there's no statute of limitations on your disability claims. Even if you've never filed a claim before, we get Vietnam vets that come to us that have never filed a claim before.
Absolutely.
It's not too late. It is not too late. So keep that in mind, no matter how long ago it was. And if you're not sure, ask us. I'm a big believer that I'd rather be asked and told no than always wonder if I should have asked.
Right. Exactly. Speaking of another question here, Mark Kendall asks, can I file a higher level review or an HLR and supplemental at the same time as long as they are not for the same condition? You answered your own question, brother. The answer is yes, you can. You can have a supplemental out for one condition and an HLR out for a different condition, and you're just fine there. And also, typically, this question comes out a lot. Oh, well, if I do both at the same time, will one slow the other down? Not necessarily. We see claims come back at different levels all the time.
And keep in mind, the HLR track is literally a separate track than a supplemental claim track, and it's handled by a different crew of people, decision review officers. They don't cross paths. Now, if you have a new claim, and then while that's pending, you file another new claim, those could potentially get merged and slow one down because those do go through the same process. So there's a lot of nuances to some of that stuff, but you can file different claims and have them pending at the same time without worry that they're going to cancel one or kick one out because you can't have more than one claim at once. In fact, those of you that have worked with VSOs in the past know that oftentimes they'll have you file a huge number of claims all at the same time, dozens seemingly,
they'll throw it at the wall, won't they?
Not always a good strategy, but we see that often.
Absolutely. Susan asks, how long does it usually take to get an answer on an appeal disputing a ratings decision? This is the question that I believe we're all asked the most. Susan, we've seen appeals come back within days. We've seen appeals take over a year and a half. I wish I had an average. There is a mathematical average there somewhere if somebody wants to do the math, but I would say expect about 3 to 4 months. Obviously, again, there are outliers where it could come back much more quickly or take much longer, but I would say 3 to 4 months. Gil, what's your experience there?
Absolutely. And there's really no way to guess that. If you're filing a new claim, it depends upon what the claim is, depends upon the evidence they need, depends upon the evidence you provide. If you're filing a supplemental claim, they can look back at what they decided before and what's the new and relevant evidence you have now, and does that change your decision? If it's an HLR, a request for a higher level review, you're going to take a look and say, okay, what are you saying we did wrong? And let's take a look at that and see if we have to correct something or if it stands. And all of that relies on human beings to do their job every step of the way. And so if you get someone that's very, very diligent and gets everything done right away, but then it moves on to the next phase and that person is swamped and is on vacation or way behind, it may slow the process down. So there's just no way to predict that. We wish we could. Vandy's right. That's probably the question we get asked more than anything else. How long is this going to take? and we have to give them the most hated answer in the world. It depends.
Yep.
Completely out of your hands and ours.
Absolutely. Surfside Dan, love your name. 101st Airborne. 100 worst, or no, I'm just kidding. 82nd though, all the way. If you're 100% permanent and total, brother, I would never ever file a claim ever again. Especially when I don't see why you would have an intent to file open. If you're doing that, you could open yourself up for review and possibly lose your P&T status if they downgraded it. Now, if you've been P&T for X amount, I believe it's at least 10 years, right, Gil? Correct me if I'm wrong.
So, yeah.
If you've been P&T for 10 years, then you're not subject to getting downgraded. But I don't see why you'd have an intent to file ever again, brother. If you could elaborate down in the comments, I'd be happy to scroll down and look. But we're while Gil is going in chronological order. But I just don't see why you would ever have an intent to file open if you're permanent and total.
Yeah, keep in mind that once you hit permanent and total designation, they're not going to review any of your claims, any of your conditions again, unless you ask them to. Mm-hmm. And if you file a new claim, you're potentially opening up those old claims. We refer to that as poking the bear around here. And why would you do that? You can't get more than 100% permanent and total. Even if you've got some special monthly compensation claims that you think you qualify for, it's probably not worth that exercise because, again, you're putting that designation at risk and you're already maxed out. Okay, so there's a couple of rare exceptions to that, but for the most part, once you hit 100 P&T, man, take your win to celebrate.
Absolutely, brother. Thanks for your question, Dan. All right, let's see. Scroll down a little bit here till we see the next one here. All right. Hey, congratulations, Ray. Glad to hear that. You got 100%. Just another day at the office, brother. Congratulations. Life-changing stuff. 2 years. Man, time flies, doesn't it? I'm not sure who your coach was, but I 2 years ago, we were still here in the mud going through it, right? Good stuff, brother. Let me see here. Patrina asks or says, I've always been told that you must be diagnosed while on active duty or within 1 year of discharge. That is more for direct service connection, and within that 1 year of discharge caveat only goes for certain chronic conditions. But let me finish your question here. It is difficult for the Army National Guard to be diagnosed while on active duty. What suggestions should a National Guard soldier? What suggestions do we have for you? So for National Guard and Reserve, if you get hurt on duty or if you come down with a chronic illness on duty, talk to your chain of command. Go to a hospital as soon as possible. Go to a provider as soon as possible and get with your chain of command for a line of duty report, right? A line of duty investigation. You've got to have that. If you're not on Title 10 orders and you're not able to go to a military installation to get things put directly into your military active duty your military service treatment records, right? Then you're going to have that line of duty investigation. All right. So for Guard and Reserve, a lot of folks that come to us that are out of the Guard and Reserve at this point are really, step forward is going to be secondary conditions, right? So presumptives and secondaries. So again, these are more, I don't want to get too far into the weeds here, Patrina, but if you want to get on a discovery call, again, I'll put that link in the bottom here. Talk to an ambassador, get assigned a coach, and they can get more into the weeds and get you where you deserve to be. Gil?
Yeah, that's great advice. Just an aside, Ray McCarty was one of my vets. That's what he was saying there.
Oh, okay.
Congrats again, Ray. Good to see you. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. You got to be proactive about your own healthcare. A lot of us when we served, whether it was active duty, guard duty, we act like we're 10 feet tall and bulletproof. You never go to sick call. My philosophy when I was active duty Navy was the only way you're getting me to sick bay was on a stretcher. So go away, leave me alone. I got things to do. And because of that, you oftentimes don't document the things you should. So you got to start documenting stuff. If and Andy, like Andy said, a line of duty report, that formal unit investigation to determine that the condition that you're complaining of, the injury that you have occurred in a drilling status is absolutely crucial. Think of it this way. When you're a reservist or a guardsman, you're only the responsibility of your unit 1 week in a month and 2 weeks in the summer. The rest of the time you're on your own. You can do pretty much whatever you want. So if you fall down the stairs at home on Wednesday and you show up for drill on Saturday limping around, that's not going to be a service-connected disability. On the other hand, you show up for drill on Saturday and you run in the O course, you blow your knee out. Guess what? it's probably going to be a service-connected disability. But either way, you got to have a line of duty report to establish that. And that's the way you got to think about it. But there are ways to get the other benefits you deserve for other conditions, as Andy started to talk about, secondary, which we can get into another time, or presumptive conditions. There are ways.
Absolutely. Chuck asks, letter of intent. So if a second LOI is filed within the year, does that reset the LOI date, or is the original LOI still in force? So your intent to file is what I'm guessing you're talking about there. So your intent to file for VA claims, you can only have one at a time, and if you start another one, basically you're submitting a claim. So I don't really see how you can start another intent to file. Gil, have you had any experience with that? I think it's once you have one there, you submit a claim. That's the only way to get rid of that first intent to file. So really, there's guardrails in place where you can only have the one.
Yeah, the intent to file is the beginning of a claim, and when you open an intent to file, you don't want to open a claim unless you're actually ready to submit that claim. And you don't need to identify what the condition is for your intent to file either, because once you do that, that's opening a claim, and the VA will treat it as such. Mm-hmm. But once you file a claim, that uses up that intent to file, then you need to have a new one on file. And so, I mean, if you're planning to file two claims at once and you've got an intent to file that you submitted 10, 11 months ago, well, if you file one claim today, that's using that intent to file. If you file the next one next week, guess what? That's a new claim effective next week. Okay, you're going to miss out on that intent to file date. There are some really screwy ways intents to file end up being calculated and effective days being calculated. Mm-hmm. It's not always determining the effective date, the date of your intent to file. It can be the date of your diagnosis. It can be the date of your claim. Again, like everything else, it depends on a variety of different factors. But unless you're filing a new claim, filing a new intent to file isn't doing anything. But keep an eye on those dates too, because you don't want to lose out on that time if it is going to be to your benefit.
Yeah, and a good rule of thumb, if you submit a claim, I'd say about 72 hours later, do another intent to file, unless that claim is going to get you to 100%. I say 72 hours because sometimes it won't let you do an intent to file right away. It's get the VA website gets a little screwy. So good rule of thumb, once you submit a claim, go ahead a couple days later, rock another intent to file, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So Paul says at 70%, just got to it first try via VSO, low back, ankles, tinnitus. Can I do secondary for upper back? And some other thing, let's see, arthrosclerosis, diabetes, or would they need to be connected? So again, a secondary condition. So for instance, tinnitus, diabetes is not going to be secondary to tinnitus. Now there may be some wild ways around it. Like if your tinnitus is causing depression, you gain a lot of weight because you're depressed. Your weight gain leads to diabetes. That's a long roundabout way to get there as far as secondaries go. But typically, you're going to want to have a direct connection, right, for that secondary condition, and then go from there. So sometimes it's a process, right? Sometimes it is a longer process. So whereas, hey, you may be able to get from tinnitus to sleep apnea in a longer roundabout way, you can't go straight from tinnitus to sleep apnea. Make sense? So as far as, getting service connected for your lower back, that's actually a little bit tricky. And Gil might be able to elaborate on this, but a little bit more tricky to go from your lower back to get a nexus for your upper back, right? So your lower back and your neck. Yeah, there's a kinetic chain there, but I've seen some wild denial letters for those. So you might end up going to HLR. But that's why, hey, it's always great to have a coach, right? Lots of respect to VSOs, but their jobs are a little different than ours. We look at things in different ways. We strategize, we educate and all this other kind of stuff. And we could point you in the right direction as far as, independent medical opinions, nexus letters, and so on. Again, Telemedica is our preferred provider network. They're an outstanding company of medical professionals. And they can, again, if you get with a coach and get with Telemedica, they can do a big records review and, tell you what they think they can see.
Yeah, that's great information. And keep in mind, Telemedica, they're a completely separate company from us. They're simply a member of our preferred provider network that you have access to at a substantially discounted rate as a member of our program. No one that's in our program is required to use them. It's simply a benefit of being a member of our program. And they are a private company that does have fees for their services, and you pay them directly for that. But oftentimes it's a huge benefit to you if you need a current diagnosis, if you need a nexus opinion or a DBQ, if you need a mental health evaluation, they can provide those great services for you. One more thought on secondary claims, and let's make sure everybody understands this. A secondary condition is one that was not caused directly by your military service, but was caused by another service-connected disability. In other words, let's say you have extreme tinnitus and you have PTSD, and you're rated for both of those things. Those things may be causing you severe headaches. You weren't diagnosed with headaches on active duty. You didn't have them on active duty, but you have them now. You might be able to tie something like that secondary to those conditions. And it's a very important consideration for you to make, but they have to have a strong medical connection, a medical opinion to make that connection. Secondary connections, again, conditions not diagnosed on active duty, but still can be service connected. And what's interesting, some of you may not know this, is that a secondary condition can actually be rated substantially higher than the direct connection condition on which it's based. Tinnitus is max rated at 10%, but gosh, if you get a 50% rating for migraine headaches caused by your tinnitus, guess what? Still counts just as much.
Absolutely. Great info there, Gil. I appreciate that. Gilberto asked, I am 80% being paid at 100% unemployability. Can I work to make just a bit more money, or will I risk my rating? So yes, you can work under strict conditions, right? So basically it comes down to marginal employment. You can work in what the VA calls marginal employment, which is earnings below the federal poverty threshold, or employment in a protected work environment like a family business or sheltered workshop. Even if you earn more than poverty level, the poverty level threshold in 2024, for example, was 15 grand a year for a single adult with no dependents. But you want to check your current U.S. Census Bureau poverty guidelines each year, because that can change. I just know that 2024 figure offhand because I worked, I gave advice to a TDIU veteran last year on another call like this. So I had to do the research there. But a protected work environment basically means it's a job where your employer makes significant accommodations. For example, you're paid full wages, but allowed extra breaks and flexible hours. You're excused from productivity standards others must meet. You're kept on the payroll because you're a family member. Even if you earn more than the poverty level, if your work is in a protected environment, the VA may not consider it substantially gainful employment. All right. And basically what that means is any regular paying job above the poverty threshold in the general labor market that is not protected, that can disqualify you from TDIU. So if you don't apply to that, 15 grand is the threshold for last year. So I'll just look at the new standard for that. Hope that answered your question. Gil, anything to add?
No, that's great information. But let me, for those of you that aren't familiar with the issue of unemployability, it's actually called total disability individual unemployability. You'll hear it referred to as TDIU or IU or unemployability. It's a benefit award where you didn't reach 100% level of rating. That's called your scheduler rating. That number that the VA assigns you, that's your scheduler rating. But if you didn't reach 100% scheduler rating, under certain conditions, you can receive 100% benefits if your disabilities prevent you from working. Okay. It may sound like an attractive way to go, but it's not always, because of those severe earnings restrictions that Andy was explaining so well. You put yourself in a box and you risk losing those benefits. But if a good employment opportunity shows up, what are you going to do? So for most folks, we see it's, if you have a pathway to get to 100% permanent total, that's better for you in the long term than seeking TDIU benefits. But if you don't, or if you can't really work, or if you're of an age where you're never going to work again, TDIU may be a perfectly reasonable path for you to go. But you got to weigh out those equities for yourself, okay? Because that's an important decision. You got to look, okay, what's going to be best for me and my future and my family, and how can we maximize our benefits in a way that makes sense for us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are different TDIU requirements as well. So remember, you have to have, you have to meet basically one condition at least, or multiple that add up to 70, one condition that's at least 60. And then the VA does conduct an investigation, right? So they have to basically see, do you meet this threshold? Are you unemployable due to your specific your specific condition that's service connected, so on and so forth. So it is a little bit of a struggle to get there, but could be worth it if you don't feel that you can get to 100% the regular scheduled way, like Gil said. So Francine, I see your comment there, but I don't see a question. I don't know if you want to elaborate there, please. Further on down, Francine Nicholson, I don't know if you're still here with us. It was a rather lengthy message, but I didn't see a question in there. Gil, did you want to touch on that? Or I don't see it.
I don't see it. How far down is it?
It was right below the question that we just asked.
Oh, okay. I blew right past it.
80%. So Francine Nicholson, I guess her husband was being treated and, had some unfortunate medical situations happen, but and they performed a procedure on him, but I don't
there it is.
Question.
Okay.
Yeah. Just kind of an ellipses there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Suffered a stroke. So are you asking maybe, I can deduce from this, are you asking if maybe his stroke or residuals from his stroke could be secondary to the PTSD, something along those lines? I'll go ahead and just, assume that's your question. But yes, it can be. But again, you would need a nexus letter, right, from a licensed physician to, review those records, do the medical research, and say, hey, yes, we do see a link between possibly this condition and this condition, and so on and so forth. So again, I would get more in the weeds with that with your coach. Again, we want to answer more broad, generalized questions here, Francine. Don't want to get too deep into a specific thing that would take up a lot of time there. So I do apologize for that.
Yeah, and that's a shame you're going through that. And alternatively, if your question is, can you make a claim for something the VA did wrong in treating your husband? That's a different kind of claim. That's not something that we deal with. You'd want to get legal counsel on that opinion and see if there's a potential claim for you. So you're looking at two potentially different issues there, one of which we could talk to you about if you want to have a discovery call with one of our veteran ambassadors and see if that can be service connected. The other is outside of the realm of what we do every day.
H. Smale asks, benefit of the doubt, your experience. My experience is that the law is ignored all the time. Yes, 100% yes, it is ignored all the time. That's why sometimes, hey, folks, these claims, even with great nexus letters, with outstanding, perfect nexus letters, sometimes claims don't win on the first try. You got to go to an HLR, sometimes a supplemental. Because, yes, the VA, unfortunately, some of their laws and regulations are not always followed in their decision letters, in their decision-making process. So you've got to hold them accountable. That's the purpose of an HLR, the purpose of a supplemental after an HLR sometimes, because even sometimes HLRs get it wrong, and then you win on that supplemental afterwards. So don't be discouraged. It's part of the process. And if you keep it going, you're eventually going to get your back pay to the effective date anyways. So, Gil, I know, you and I were talking before the class, and, HLRs, we've become killers with those things, but anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, the rule, unfortunately, is seems like it's the exception more than the rule lately, but not always. I mean, and what we're talking about is the VA is required to balance all of the evidence you submitted the claim. They call it the doctrine of equipoise. Most would refer to it as the benefit of the doubt rule. Basically, what it means is, I like to think of it, tie goes to the runner. When you have conflicting evidence with different opinions, but it's equally qualified, your doctor says, hey, this is service-connected for this reason. It's more likely than not service-connected disability. And their doctor says, no, I don't agree with that. Unless there's a differentiation in qualifications, standards, some reason that your doctor is not as probative, not as valuable a piece of evidence, they have to accept the evidence that favors the veteran, giving the veteran the benefit of the doubt. Often they don't do that. And I think that the VA knows that. That's why the higher level review system is in place. That's why the decision review office exists. They handle thousands and thousands of claims, and they know that they're not perfect and mistakes get made. And so the senior raters that look at those reviews, they have more experience, more training. That's all they do is look at other people's work to see if they did it right. And oftentimes the question is, they didn't give me the benefit of the doubt. They just didn't. Here's what the law says. Here's what your own standards say. Here's what my medical evidence said. Here's the qualifications of my doctor. it meets the standards that the VA is required to follow, and you didn't follow. You didn't give me the benefit of the doubt. That's oftentimes the argument that you're making for a higher level review. So that's where that benefit of the doubt argument comes into play. So one of the important things to understand, and we stress to our veterans, just because you get an answer you don't like or isn't right is not the end of the discussion. It's not the end of the fight. I always tell my vets, look, when you get a bad decision, whether it's a denial or lower rating than you want, after you're done yelling and screaming, pull it out of the trash, smooth it out, upload it so I can take a look at it, so that we can review it. Because one of the things you're going to see in every decision is not only why they said no, but what the favorable findings were too. What did you give them that was right? Do you have a current diagnosis? Did you have an in-service event? They're going to tell you things, and oftentimes that is a great roadmap on how to overcome that denial. And that's one of the things that we spend a lot of time with our veterans focusing on. Okay, how can we overcome this denial? What evidence do we need to get you where you need to be?
Absolutely. And, folks, just as another aside here, if you're looking for a discovery call or a consultation, rather, we call them discovery calls. Click the link that'll pop up here in the bottom. It's been up there a couple times, but yes, we do offer discovery calls, and they are free of charge. You don't have to sign up for a contract. You can just, have that discovery call and see if this is the right program for you, and go from there. Bobby Dukes does ask, can sleep apnea be secondary to asthma? It can be secondary-ish, but it's also combined. So if you're at 30% for asthma, you're on a CPAP, and you get that secondary, and you get that awarded that 50% sleep apnea, your 30% for asthma will just move down to a 0 for asthma. Okay. So they're not going to be two separate ratings. They're going to be combined all in that one. And yes, they can be secondary. Gil, anything to add?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. You can't have a separate rating for asthma and sleep apnea. So you're going to want to get whichever rating, and the VA will give you whichever rate's higher. Okay. Right. If you've got asthma that supports a 60% rating, well, since sleep apnea is maxed at 50, if you have sleep apnea and you're already at 60 for asthma, you're not going to get rated for sleep apnea also. Conversely, in Andy's example, you're 30% for asthma, but you have a diagnosis of sleep apnea with a breathing device like a CPAP, that's a 50% rating condition. If you get that service connected, it'll subsume the asthma rating, and they'll probably rate you with sleep apnea with asthma 50%. So they combine those things. These are good questions, and these are the kinds of things that we deal with every day. So if you're struggling to do these things alone, come on board. Talk to one of our veteran ambassadors. We've already shown you the link. If you want to sign up to work directly with Andy or directly with me, we can have you sign up and do that too. You'll become a member of our team. You work with us and one of our veteran, our lead program coordinators. The whole team is here to support our vets. We do this, like I said, all day, every day. Would love to bring you on board. Anybody's got any questions?
Absolutely. And Ray asks, if they use age and weight against you, even though you had a supplemental with weight gain tied to service, is this a winnable HLR? Yes. Right. Age and weight, it's often, part of maybe a physician thinks, oh, well, this veteran would have had this condition regardless due to their age and their weight. Well, that cannot be considered. So age cannot be considered under 38 CFR subsection 4.19. It is crystal clear. Age may not be considered as a factor in evaluating service-connected disability. If the VA decision references age as a reason your condition is not service-connected or less disabling, that is a legal error. Okay. Again, just to clarify, we are not attorneys, VSOs, or anything like that, but that is the fact. We do read a lot of 38 CFR and so on and so forth. So that is a legal error. Obesity and weight gain Okay, so basically, if the VA used weight gain or used to treat weight gain as an automatically non-compensable, but that has changed, right? They used to treat it that way, but it's changed. The VA, there's a precedent opinion there, and let's see, the precedent opinion makes it clear that obesity can be an intermediate step in the chain of causation for secondary service connection. So to answer your question, yes, you can win the NHLR. Gil, anything to add there, brother?
Keep in mind, obesity is not a separately rateable condition, but it is a considered intermediate step. Mm-hmm. And where we see that more often than anywhere else is in a sleep apnea claim. You weren't diagnosed with sleep apnea on active duty, so it's going to have to be a secondary condition. And in some cases, if you have other service-connected disabilities that led to unavoidable weight gain, and that weight gain led to sleep apnea, it can be secondary through that intermediate step. That's where we sometimes see that. It's tough battle. It's not an easy one, but it can be done there. And so the age point, absolutely spot on, Andy. They can't use your age against you.
Right.
And the weight, again, you want to look at that and see. Before that argument, the VA typically said, you're fat. Gil's fat because he likes to eat donuts. That pretty much. Or in VA speak, it's a lifestyle choice.
Right, and the caloric intake. They would say caloric intake led to the cause of this and stuff like that. I just want to address something in the chat there. Iron Shackelford says, Grok says yes for the most part. Folks, be very aware of AI is not perfect yet. Okay, as much as a lot of folks rely on AI for things these days, I have fiddled with it in the past and have seen great errors, giving out really bad information. So use it to maybe organize your emails or something like that. But I would just, before you take advice from it, just be aware there. Okay. Angela also asked, if we pay for an IMO, can they do one letter for multiple conditions, or do you have to pay for a separate letter for each condition that you already are diagnosed for? So, Angela, typically you won't even get a nexus letter unless you're diagnosed anyways. So, it doesn't really hinge on the diagnosis. For each condition, you will have to get a separate nexus letter, because that nexus letter is going to tie that one condition to something else. Another nexus letter is going to have to tie. So they're not just a sweeping nexus letter. It's not going to be multiple in one. All right. Anything to add there, Gil?
No, perfect explanation.
All righty. Let's see here. My husband has a 30% disability for hearing loss from his time in Vietnam. Thank you for his service, and thank you for your family's service to our country. Has not had an increase in several years. Can you help him? So we could certainly take a look. Definitely, if you'd like to speak with an ambassador or a coach, you could definitely sign up. We could take a look. I will say 30% is relatively high for hearing loss. You don't really see much higher than 40, and you have to pass certain parameters, right? There's got to be, certain percentages, and that's all done scientifically with hearing tests and so on and so forth. So hearing loss is one that a lot of veterans struggled with. So no guarantees that we can help them out, but we could certainly take a look.
And also, as a Vietnam veteran, there's a whole host of presumptive conditions he might be eligible for. And if he was a Vietnam vet, he's of a certain age, or other things have probably manifested over time. There may be secondary conditions. If all he has is that 30% rating for his hearing loss, I would be willing to wager he's leaving a lot of benefits on the table.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was under I apologize. I should have clarified. Good save there, Gil. I meant for specifically for the hearing loss. Is there any way to get that increase? But yeah, Gil nailed it.
You're right. You're right on that hearing loss. I mean, I look at a 30% hearing loss. Go, wow.
Yeah.
That's high.
But Gil nailed it at 30% for hearing loss. I'm guessing there's definitely some secondaries there, right? Especially with you're losing a sense, right? So that can lead to some other things. And then, as you said, the PACT Act and other Vietnam era Agent Orange exposure, if he was exposed to Agent Orange and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would say get with Gil or myself or another coach, and let's talk about where he can go from there. So let's see. Carol asks, what does Champ VA pay for dependent of a deceased veteran? The dependent is no disabled, needs transportation to doctor's appointments. So Gil, I don't really have too much experience with Champ VA so it depends on how long the veteran has been deceased and so on and so forth. Do you have a good answer for her there?
I really don't. Champ VA is a little bit outside of what we do. It's a benefit that's dependents of 100% permanent and total disabled veterans are entitled to. It's a healthcare plan that is at no cost to them or the veteran. In your situation, deceased veteran, I really can't answer that. I'd go directly to the VA and ask them about those eligibility issues. You're talking about transportation. Frankly, I don't even know if Champ VA provides transportation under those conditions.
So if he died from a VA-related service-connected condition, then let's see, Champ VA would pay for outpatient and inpatient care, prescription drugs, medical equipment, mental health care, nursing and hospice, some preventative care, but Champ VA does not directly cover non-emergency transportation for routine appointments in most cases. So yeah, I would give the VA a call. Here's the Champ VA hotline is 1-800-733-8387. Those are the experts. They can answer your specific questions. Again, 1-800-733-8387, specifically for Champ VA. And there's they listed the VA's hotline down there at the bottom. But again, I'll just repeat it one more time. 800-733-8387. That is the Champ VA helpline. I apologize that's a little out of our wheelhouse, but hopefully we got you some good information there.
Yeah, we didn't give you nothing. Yeah, that is a different one. We don't deal with Champ VA directly.
Yeah.
So best of luck to you on that, Carol. Sorry for the loss of the veteran.
Dwight asks about pain and suffering. I mean, that's more of a legal thing. If they, so he said, I received 20% of my ruptured Achilles tendon, went 9 months with it disconnected because they would not look at it. So the Achilles was separated is what it sounds like. Can I open a claim for pain and suffering? So if you're looking to sue the VA or something along those lines, that's not something that we can provide any help for there. If you're looking for a second, if you're service connected for it, like you said, you're 20% for it, and you're looking for a secondary mental health, like, hey, depression, anxiety, something along those lines, absolutely, that is something that can be done with the right procedure. So definitely, I would say get with a coach and talk about that. But as far as any legal things, when I see the words pain and suffering, I'm like, oh, somebody's going to sue. That's not something that we touch with a 10-foot pole here. So.
No, and keep in mind that when the VA is evaluating a disability, the question is, what is the current disability that you're dealing with? How does this impact your life? How does this limit you? And then they look at the rating standards to determine what rating level that supports. Pain is a consideration for a lot of orthopedic conditions, but it's pain today. It's not pain that you had for those 9 months that you feel like you are owed for. That's a whole different issue. But if you're looking to get your ankle or your Achilles, your ankle because your Achilles service connected, it's not already at 20%. If you're looking to get an increase, that's something that you can ask for, but you have to show that the condition today is worse than it was at the time they rated it at 20%. All right. And that's going to be subject to a compensation and pension exam, typically called the C&P exam, where they're going to bring you in and measure your range of motion, talk to you about it, see what you can do, see what you can't do, see what the limitations are, and compare that to the ratings chart, see what should this injury be rated. But Andy's right. Now, if you're looking to sue somebody, it's not what we do, brother.
Yeah, not what we do at all. Again, we're not attorneys, VSOs, or we're not affiliated with the VA in any way. Angela asks a follow-up question there. If you're 100% currently, but were previously denied for conditions that should be are you eligible for retroactive pay for those? That's something that we would have to look at the dates, the effective dates of when you originally got the 100%, when the other things were denied, so on and so forth. So that's a little out of our wheelhouse. Again, you'd probably have to sit down with somebody and specifically have them look at everything for you. I would have to see dates and all that good stuff, and that would take a lot more time than we have. We have 12 minutes left. So I do apologize, Angela, but that's something that I would really need to look at. But the answer is maybe, right? You might be able to, if you can go back and show, hey, I should have been service connected for this. But again, if you're outside of a year, you technically have 365 days to appeal something. So it's really not looking great. But again, technically it is possible if you're within that year of appealing or an HLR. Gil, anything there?
Yeah, and also if you're already at 100% permanent and total, this goes back to what we were talking earlier. Do you really want to poke the bear? Do you really want to go in there and say, hey, I want you to look at this big toe of mine because dang it, you owe me for that. And then they find that, oh, wait a minute, we misrated this other condition that we gave you 40% on. So we're taking that away and we'll give you 10% on your big toe.
Right.
Well, guess what? You're now back to 70 or 80%, and it's not permanent in total. So you really want to consider, is what you're considering doing worth it? All right. Is this the best path for you to take? Or do you just take the benefits that you do have? Understand that, those are great benefits. I mean, full medical for you, full dental for you, Champ VA for all of your dependents, all the other benefits, state benefits that go with that. Many states waive property taxes and a variety of other different things. Once you're 100% permanent and total, the basket of benefits that you're entitled to is huge. Okay. And so anything that you might do that would risk that, you really got to think hard about that before you make that decision.
Yeah. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Right.
Yeah.
Another question here. Amy asks, her husband meets the criteria. He's a PACT Act eligible veteran of Desert Storm. Thank you for your service. And she asked about COPD and can they deny him based on smoking history? Yes, they can. Actually, that is the number one reason for denial of COPD is because of smoking history. I've also had veterans from Vietnam say, well, hey, look, they issued us cigarettes. That's a whole nother battle, but yet, they can. That's because honestly, smoking is it's a choice, right? And that is something they can deny. Now, if the medical opinion that you get, if you have an independent medical opinion from a physician, again, this goes to the benefit of the doubt rule, that says, hey, in my opinion, yes, the veteran smoked intermittently in this period of time or whatever it is, right? You can get into the weeds, right? And you could possibly beat that. But to answer your question, yes, they can deny it based on smoking history. Gil?
Yeah, and this is an example of why talking to a coach and coming up with a strategy on how best to maximize your benefits makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of vets out there that get, tunnel vision on a claim they want to pursue that they're never going to win, or it's never really going to do much benefit for them. And so talking to a vet or a coach rather about what you're eligible for and what you might have. Let's talk about the PACT Act briefly. There's a lot of misunderstanding of what that did. The PACT Act didn't create claims. What it did, it created presumptive claims. It designated certain conditions presumptive, which again, as we talked earlier, means that if you served in a qualifying place at a qualifying time, and a lot of folks that served in Southwest Asia, Desert Storm, Desert Shield, various other operations, Afghanistan, Iraq, all those different places out there, if you have a qualifying diagnosis or a diagnosis of a qualifying condition, the VA will presume it was caused by your military service in that area. All right. But you still got to have a diagnosis. It doesn't mean you're automatically going to get a rating for something just because you were there. Presence is not a disability. The diagnosis is potentially a disability. And your presence at the qualifying time and place, including the airspace above and the seas around, a lot of people miss that point, that can create a presumptive service connection to add to your disability benefits. And again, some of those presumptive conditions can be used to build other secondary conditions that you have that are caused by those things. There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, and it can be very complicated. And so having someone that has some expertise and a lot of knowledge and background in this stuff really works to your advantage.
Absolutely. See, Iron Marshmallow, another unique name here. Is there any word on the changes in ratings when it comes to mental health claims? A government website says that a final action is required next month for AQ82. So, great observation. So you're referring to the registered document or docket VA AQ82, which is the VA's planned overhaul of the schedule of rating disability for mental health disorders and other symptoms. As of right now, though, a lot of that stuff is shelved. Okay, so the proposed changes, though nothing is final yet, here are the major highlights, right? So they want to remove the global assessment functioning score that's already been de-emphasized in practice, but it would be fully removed as a rating consideration. The replacement for the current 0%, 0 to 100% rating criteria, right now it's 0, 10, 30, 50, 70, and 100, right? That's based largely on occupational and social impairment. Now, with the symptom-based system, focuses more on frequency, severity, and duration of symptoms and impact on functioning in 4 domains. That's occupational, social, cognitive, and emotional, and the degree of support required to maintain functioning. The change rating precedes percentages and thresholds are as follows. Creates new criteria for percentages, more detailed symptoms list, and adding in some cases could make it easier to get higher ratings. So they're going to add the 80 and 90, right? As of right now, it goes 70 to 100. There is no 70, 80, 90, 100. So where does it stand now? It's a proposed rule, but that's been proposed since February of 2022. We've been hearing sleep apnea is going to change, next month. We've been hearing that for going on 3 years, and nothing's changed. So right now, these deadlines slip. A lot of this stuff is shelved. The July of 2024 target was the earliest they would have finalized it, and here we are a year later. So as of right now, there's really nothing going on with that. Everything is shelved. We'll hear as soon as we hear it. Brian and Terrell are going to put out a video. I can guarantee it. right? Brian's our founder, and T is our one of the OGs, as it were. So how to track it yourself? You can go to reginfo.gov-AQ-82. Okay. That's how you can, or you just type that into Google and it'll pop up if you need the exact URL. So as of right now, everything is shelved. There's no changes that are on our radar that are going to be enacted anytime soon. Gil, anything to add there, brother?
No, that was great. I mean, don't believe everything you read. Don't believe everything you hear out there. You know, the changes will be announced when the changes get announced. And until they do, it's business as usual. We keep track of that stuff as closely as we can. We coach our vets, educate our vets on any changes that are coming up, and make our best recommendations on how to get the benefits you deserve in light of the current rules. And keep in mind, when the VA does change the rules, and it doesn't typically change things that are already rated. Everybody gets grandfathered in. If you already have a rating for a condition that they drop after you've got it, they're not going to take that away from you unless you go in and ask them to do something with it. Then they're going to rate it under the new rules. Okay, so keep that in mind.
Mark asks about high blood pressure or hypertension being presumptive for Desert Storm vets. It is not currently under the PACT Act for Desert Storm vets. It is, however, under the PACT Act for Vietnam-era veterans linked to Agent Orange, but not currently to Desert Storm veterans who served in Southwest Asia. It is not on the Gulf War presumptive list, unfortunately, at this time, but can be secondary to other things. So if it's not presumptive, it may be secondary. Get with a coach, talk to an ambassador, and see where you can go from there. Gil?
Yeah, absolutely right. And that dovetails into the question just below that. 50+ Life asks, is there any opinion on Terra claims, new trend for rating? Toxic exposure risk assessment claims within the PACT Act, they require the VA to look, did this veteran have toxic exposure during their service? It didn't create a claim, but it created an opportunity to say, well, okay, there's toxic exposure here, and that might lead to this condition. And so even though you're not going to be granted a claim as a presumptive condition under a Terra analysis, they may find that we did a Terra analysis, and yes, we concede you were exposed to toxic risks on active duty. Now, let's look at your condition. Was it potentially caused by this? Is it more likely than not caused by that? So being on that toxic exposure list, like someone mentioned, burn pit list, all that does is acknowledge that you served in a place and did a job that exposed you to toxic risks, and then potentially you might have claims connected to that. It's not new claims. It's not a new analysis trend. It's a requirement of the PACT Act that they look at that to see, okay, now what's ironic about that, and Andy sees this as much as I do, we often see a Terra analysis for things that have nothing to do with toxic exposure because they're required to do that now.
Duty to assist.
Tinnitus claim come back and say, we reviewed your tinnitus claim for toxic exposure risk assessment, and we find that although you had toxic exposure, you didn't have toxic exposure, so it's not caused by that. We know that. We're talking about hazardous noise, but you'll see that all the time. It's just part of the process.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just one of those things, right? But hey, folks, it is almost at the top of the hour. Just want to cover a couple things real quickly. Thank you for all your questions. Again, we are not accredited agents, VSOs, or attorneys, or any other entity recognized by the Department of Veterans Affairs. We are consultants, and we're coaching. We're coaches, and we are here to help guide you through strategy, education, and medical evidence when that is needed. We definitely encourage you folks to, get with if you would like to have a discovery call, the link below. Again, we highly encourage you for that, to sign up with that, get a coach, get that one-on-one coaching so that your coach, whether it's Gil, myself, or any of the other wonderful folks here at VA Claims Insider, can put eyes on your documentation, have a one-on-one strategy call with you, look at what makes the most sense for you, what the most cost-effective route is for you, so on and so forth, and get you to the point that you're at the benefit, that you have the benefits that you deserve. And the only way to do that is by having that strategy, getting that education, and having that medical evidence. Again, thank you so much for spending the last hour with Gil and myself. It means a lot to us, and thank you for letting me be a part of your day and your claims process. Gil, you got anything to say to these fine folks before we sign off?
My honor to be here. I love working with you, Andy. It's great answering all these questions. Hopefully we clarified a few things and didn't confuse anything for you. but there's always more information to be had. The fact that you're here tells us that you're interested in learning and you're interested in increasing your benefits. That is great for you. If we can be a part of that journey, we'd be honored to do so. Wish you all the best. Have a great day.
And if we didn't get to your question, the Facebook Mastermind, I believe we'll be getting to many of those. Thank you so much, folks. Have a great day.